with YouTube, they've recently made some big changes. Not just the small changes, but much bigger changes than I think most people realize. A lot of YouTube creators are talking about how they're losing views. I think this is a twofold reason. I think YouTube did something overt. You know, basically they said they're doing one thing, but I think it's to cover for something else. I think YouTube itself has been botting views. And when Twitch cracked down on botted views and lost, I mean, some of the big creators lost like 25% of their viewership. Like that's scary. And I think it's a lot of things that people don't understand. Okay. There's issues, I guess. Basically, what I'm trying to explain is very simple. There is a mode on YouTube called restricted mode. Now, YouTube is using this to hide videos from people. This is what my channel looks like to most people. Hey, Green Jeans. Talking about why I won't be streaming to YouTube anytime soon and why I don't expect anything from YouTube on at least the Neon Boss part of things anytime recent. So if you look at the top here, where it says 93 videos, right? I have 93 videos, right? Okay. Now there's a little tab up here where I can go over to here. It's called restricted mode. And I'll turn it on and it automatically refreshes the browser. That's the videos I have left. That's it. That's what happens to my channel when restricted mode gets put on. 93 to, well, it was 7, but last time I checked, so they've added a couple. No, it's 8, 9. Yeah, they've added literally a couple. Yeah, now it's 9 videos. So I literally go to 10% of what my channel was. I go from 93 to 9 with just that. Okay. Now, that's only if people are, you know, viewing things with restricted mode. You know, that's not that big of a deal, except for it also tells you, see, well, you're not going with restricted mode on when you go to YouTube. I mean, most people aren't. What they don't tell you about that is that those are also the videos that YouTube is not going to push out there for other people to see. You have to actively seek them out. And with how much is on YouTube, that's very difficult to get to. It literally means they won't put it out there. It's why my YouTube lives have gone nowhere, because they're not pushing it out there for other people. And people tell me, oh, well, you know, use shorts. I refuse. I refuse to use short form media content because it has been proven to be exactly like a drug. I won't use shorts. I won't use reels. I have a hard time understanding why people do, other than it is addictive. Well, not only are they weird, it literally, your brain is addicted. Plus, it also, because of the way the media hits you, it bypasses your certain cognitive functions, your critical thinking skills about what's being sent to you, because it's so short. It's literally playing on your short term memory to long-term memory switches. Like, it's literally biological. This is an algorithm that is designed to advertise to you, to do things to you in such a weird way that, I mean, I've heard people like, you know, sitting there watching a TikTok or a short, and then they realize it's an ad. And I don't mean that it's a sponsored ad by the creator, that the advertising is now so good, you don't even realize that you're being advertised to. which just really hits different levels in the brain. So yeah, you're damn skippy. I'm not going to do that. I honestly think that the best thing you can do for any creator is to stop watching short form media, is to literally stop using it, because then YouTube will have to push the longer form content where creators actually get paid, because that's the other problem. I remember hearing a statistic a while back about Mr. Beast getting like 1 billion views and he was paid for $2,000. Well, no, I'm even talking about watching them. I don't think people should be watching them, let alone creating them. You know, and I know that this would alienate a lot of people, and I get that, but you know, it's not like, I mean, think about it. Where did TikTok get started? How did this, like, why is TikTok so popular now? It's almost 10 years ago now that TikTok hit a peak in popularity because they were talking about canceling it, about banning it in the United States. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people started using something that now they had FOMO, fear of missing out. And guess what? So they went and got it. They went and looked at it. They went and started using it. And now here it is almost 10 years later, and people are absolutely addicted. And we're in some of the most politically, fanatically charged climate we've ever seen. And I put that right down to short form media. I think it's literally causing us to lose our heads. You know, and I'm not even just talking about Charlie Kirk or, you know, all of these other violent political things. I'm also talking about just straight up fandoms. You know, Marvel, DC, Sailor Moon. I don't know all of them. You know, all of the different animes and how critically people like adhere, you know, hold on to these fandoms and almost straight up get violent at people for even doing a mild critique of it. I don't like Dragon Ball because it takes a whole season to get through a fight. It's boring. You know, I mean, but that's me. I'm not saying that nobody else can like it. I'm saying for me, it's boring, so I don't watch it. I'm not saying it's bad for you. What I am saying is shorts are bad for you. Short form media of any kind, reels, TikTok, shorts. I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting. You know, I mean, you look, it is brain rot. It is literally destroying your cognitive abilities. What's up, Ninetales? And it's straight up destructive in the way it is, you know, short form media is pushed to people, how it falsely makes them think, you know, that they're spending less time on that when they're actually end up spending more time watching shorts than if they had just watched one long form video. And that's why YouTube is using restricted mode. They want you to switch and push your channel. What most people don't understand is that in a year, maybe 2, depending on how fast, you know, the adoption happens, you're going to end up killing your channel for any kind of long form content because you're feeding this short term content. So people won't watch your longer forms. They'll just wait for you to upload, you know, that same long form video into 15 different parts of shorts. And guess what? You know, you're going to be making 1/10 of the money because shorts are literally structured pay wise different than a long form video. It's ridiculous and it's insane. It's insane that people can't see it. It's really going to basically destroy the creator space. It's going to push people off platform, you know, and people talk bad about Kick and all of this crap. You know, Kick, Rumble, and all of that is like, oh, there's just nothing but a bunch of degenerates over there. True. And a lot of people will say, oh, I won't go to Kick because they, you know, support gambling. Well, at least they're not lying to you like YouTube. Because that's the other thing is that all those videos that I just showed you disappear, YouTube never told me once that there was any problem with those videos. If I go to my studio, you know, where I upload those videos, they still say there is no problems with those videos. They don't even tell me it's like, oh, it has limited, you know, viewership or this, that, and the other thing. And so I don't know. I don't know that that's what's happening until I actually had to go and look at it myself and see what happened, because I'd been hearing so much about it. And to go from 93 videos to 9 available to people, and none of those are in the last month, it makes my channel look like it's a dead channel. Like I don't upload regularly. That really hurts any chance of growth. Where bigger, and I'm not even talking big channels, but channels with 10,000, 5,000, 50,000 people, they can kind of absorb that. They can kind of absorb that and kind of adhere, adjust their content. A small channel like mine that's literally just getting started, that's a killer. That's a channel killer. So since YouTube's never gonna, at least under their current, see, I'm still gonna upload the videos there. I just won't be going live. There's no point in splitting my stream. There's no point in causing all of the extra headache for me if I literally see nothing out of it. So I won't be streaming over there. So I won't be dual streaming, but I still have all the software and everything, hooked up. Yeah, it'll kill small channels. Absolutely. It'll absolutely destroy them, because most of them won't even hear it. And there's a lot of other YouTubers saying, oh, it's not a big deal. You won't, it's not that big of a deal. It's you suck. Because that's what little small channels are going to think. It's like, oh, it's my fault. I'm not putting enough out there, or I'm not doing this. Or maybe if I use shorts, I can get my name out there. It's a false bias. It's false cognitively. They're thinking that it's their fault, and it's really not. It's as simple as, you know what most of that problem is? I said a swear. That's why those videos are most likely downvoted. Sure, there, some violent gaming and stuff like that, but YouTube's built on violent gaming. So the only thing I can figure is the language that I'm now going to have to go through if I want those videos even to have a chance, is on the video games I play, stuff like that. I'm going to have to censor all of that. That's 10 times the amount of work and very little response, very little payoff. Hey, what's up, Infinite? Glad you're in. I was explaining why I'm not streaming on YouTube. Basically, YouTube is trying to kill small channels. It goes well. I've made my peace with it. Yeah, it's basically if you push one little well, let me set it up again. Let me show Infinite, let me show Rando, because they didn't get to see this. Here's my channel. I have 93 videos. You can see that right here. 93 videos. Now, if I click this restricted mode button, I go down to 9. Now, what a lot of creators are saying is, oh, that's not a big deal because most people aren't on, restricted mode. Absolutely correct. Most people are not going to be on restricted mode. But what this will do is tell you what videos of yours that YouTube will push out there. That YouTube will actually push to unknown quantities. So a small channel like me, that's absolutely destructive. That destroys me. That's why I'm not live streaming on YouTube. I wanted to give people the chance, but the fact is that YouTube's not going to show it to anybody. The problem is that if you go into, I'm not going to show you guys my studio because, that has some personal information and stuff, but in studio, it says all of those videos are perfectly fine. That there is no problem with them. They don't tell me that they're going to have limited show. And what you can tell from that restricted mode is that it's not going to push them to unknown people, to people outside of your channel. Well, exactly. It's YouTube's problem. And most of what I can tell you is that, like I said before, it's down to me swearing. YouTube put out this whole thing to creators that you can swear now. That all you have to do is wait, the first 30 seconds and you can swear. After 30 seconds, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. You can do all of this. Well, they just proved that wrong. They just lied to you. So now I have to censor myself even more so. I also have to censor the video games I play. But my problem is that if they're this shy about it, I mean, there's literally YouTube Kids for a reason. Why do I have to treat everybody like a child? Oh, wait, it's because it's their puppification people. They are trying to puppify people. I mean, we already have a generation that has trouble with confrontation, with being critiqued. We already have generations that are afraid to stand up for themselves. Because this is how you tame a populace. And I know this sounds crazy, but just hear me out. When you tame a dog, you know, you tame a wild dog has certain characteristics. No, because Roblox is more adult than this. Hell, Roblox is thinking about trying to kill YouTube with actually doing their own videos hosting. I'm not going to touch Roblox because it's yeah, I mean, from what I understand, I haven't really looked into it, but I've heard some whispers that that's what they're thinking about doing. But when you tame an animal, when you tame a dog, when you take a wolf, you look at a wolf, it's a wolf. You look at a domesticated dog, it's a dog. Well, why is that? Well, because a domesticated dog kept the puppy characteristics. A dog doesn't age the same way as a wolf. Now, if you look back to when people were talking about how much older people looked back then, right? You know, what's that guy, 40? No, he's 18 and just graduating high school. I mean, my dad looks like I do now when he was graduating high school. I'm a big fan of wolves. I mean, like literally one of my online names is Merrick Wolf. My oldest. So what we're doing is we're puppifying people. If you look around, people don't age as fast, or the characteristics of aging aren't there. We're actually regressing the brain's triggers to being considered an adult. You know, we're not solidifying our brains at such an early age. You know, and they're telling you how good this is and all of that. Well, I worry that we're actually taming humanity. We're using behaviorism, operative conditioning, psychological tricks to puppify the population so they're tame and they take orders and they do what they're supposed to. And this started way back when we first organized schooling. I mean, think about it. Schools used to, you know, K through 8. Well, sorry, first grade through 8th grade. That used to be all the education you needed. Oh, exactly. I mean, look at, 25-year-olds that are still like acting like there's no consequences in the world. Like there's no consequences to their actions. And they're using short form media to literally videotape their crimes. Like they don't get it. I mean, the Johnny Somalis, the Vitalis, I can't remember the other names, but I mean, just watch Atozi YouTube channel. There's TikTok idiots on there all the time. And this is why I won't use short form media to promote my content. I just refuse. Yes. Well, it's not. No. People are not becoming stupider. Okay, I get, recording your crimes. The only problem is that's how disconnected they are. Okay, so you know exactly who I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, I absolutely love Atozi. It seems like we have the same taste in YouTubers. But it's why I won't use short form media. It's watching the degradation of humanity in real time and speeding up. Oh, not Jack Dorsey. Is it Dorsey? I was just watching some boxing stuff on Jack Dempsey, so yeah. Anyway, I think it's Jack Dorsey. Anyway, Jack the idiot. Okay. Yeah, they're getting disconnected. They are losing the idea of consequences of their actions. And I say that they're not becoming dumber because look at the intelligence, the cunning that it takes to do some of the stuff that they're doing. You know, they're literally gaming a system and making a buttload of money. Yes, that one. Which accident? The time when he faked getting robbed? The time that he faked crashing a car? You know, the time he broke into the backyard of his old house? Yeah, that guy. I get why people would see it as being dumber, but it's the same reason why people think I'm smarter. It's because I remember things. And with this stuff, it's the consequences. They're losing causality. Their brains are losing the connection between their actions and the cause, you know, and the effect of those actions. You know, it's like everything's video game. You know, all just load with another guy. I mean, look at the prevalence of quantum immortality that people banty around. You know, never really thinking, you know, it's like, oh, it's okay. I have another guy somewhere out there. Yep. Where he was more worried about his stream than his bleeding friend. That, you know, massive car accident. And because that got so many views, what did he do? He faked another car accident. Only this time blamed it on his girlfriend. Because how many kids were raised on video games? How many people were raised with an iPad in their hand? But they don't realize that. They don't really think about that. I mean, I'm glad you understand that, Dormans. You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's straight fact. There is no reset button. You know, especially since everything you do on the online world is there forever. Sure, a normie may not be able to find it. But 10 years down the road, when you're trying to get a job that requires a suit of some kind. Yes, exactly. Well, Dormans is already proving they have a future just by the way they think. Don't ever change. You know, I mean, this is why I talk down about short form media. Dormans, I felt the same way when I was your age, and that was 30 some odd years ago. It's so difficult to explain to people why short form media is addictive. And I mean, people won't stop using shorts, you know, no matter how much I try to explain it. Like, I understand. It's something you love, it's something you want to do, but it is literally harming you. It is literally detrimental to your health, your cognitive health, your emotional health. It's just like any social media, Instagram. These things harm your well-being. With the constant comparisons to other people, with the constant, you know, seeing a life that you want, not realizing that it is all curated for your enjoyment. You know, half of the influencers you see don't own a mansion, they're renting it. And they're using it as a business expense on their taxes. Those fancy cars, rented. All that fancy jewelry, rented. Because they can't afford it. You know, they want you to think that they're some kind of big ass millionaire when they're really not. Well, stop it. Don't compare it to other people. See, this always goes back to this thing that I have lived by for a long time. What I call in my head the sufficiency doctrine. Are you happy? Well, exactly. You know, they're wasting money when they could have, you know, maybe half of what they have. If they would just pay for it outright, save up and pay. Because that way, you know, that way when your popularity wanes or when something happens, you can sell it off and, you know, make money off of that. Hell, invest. You know, because YouTube, streaming, these things have vagaries. They go up and down. So having a investment on the outside can help you absorb those losses. Affording a financial advisor, so all you have to do is just keep within a budget and you'll be fine. And if you think Mr. Beast doesn't have a financial advisor, you got wrong thinking. I guarantee you, as soon as he started getting successful, his mom forced that on him because she was his manager. Now, I have my problems with Mr. Beast, but I can respect the business acumen. It's the same way I feel about, Bill Gates. It's like, I hate what he did. He literally swallowed up other companies just to make sure that he stayed on top. Dormants, I know college students that can't read, period. And if you don't think that, she personally did that for her own benefit, you're also kind of, I'm very concerned about the education system. That's why I homeschooled my kids. Even more fun is asking them if it's in the AM or PM. Is noon in the AM or the PM? I've had to explain that to somebody in college. But even some teachers are cooked already. They know how to teach to the book. I mean, I ran into that when I was in high school, that all they knew, quarter till, quarter after, half past. Well, can anybody answer if it's, if noon is 12 a.m. or p.m.? Well, of course you can, dear. Sorry, my wife's like, right, exactly. Now, what does AM and PM mean? And why do we even use it? You want a little education? Ask yourself that one. What does AM and PM mean? For naval time? No, Navy uses 24-hour clock. I know, when I was in shipping, we used 24-hour. Yes, meridian. Post-meridium and ante-meridium, not mortem. Close enough, Dormants, but it's actually post-meridian. It's after half and before half, because that's all the meridian means. The middle. Although, Ninetales, I think you're talking about the education system. Post-mortem, ante-mortem, yes. Dormants, using logic, you got pretty damn close. It's like asking people what AD and BC and AD mean, right? Well, I'm not even going to shame anybody for not knowing, because one, who teaches that? Two, how is it relevant to your life? Oh, Common Era, CE, because they got rid of the religious name of it, but it still means the same damn thing. Yes, after death. Ante Domini. And BC is literally just before Christ. And then they have BCE, which is before Common Era, and then CE, which is Common Era. Oh my God, 10 a.m. at night. That's not what that means at all. Well, one, I hate 12-hour clock. I think we should be on a 24-hour clock. It's much easier to remember. It's much easier to get it right, as Dorman says. Like right now, it's 2140. But of course, even if they did, I would quickly correct them. Well, yeah, and I didn't use 24-hour clock until I was in shipping. When I was a merchant, I learned real quick how to use a 12-hour clock, and I never understood why we don't, as a general rule. You'll never get confused on what time it is. It doesn't matter if it's AM or PM. 0600 is 0600. Yeah, 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. 0000. And then once you get to 1 in the afternoon, what is it? Yeah, there you go. 1314. See, Normans? That's intelligence right there. And that's just, this is what we're losing to short form content, is the ability to remember what you've learned. Because your brain gets so used to having it easily done for you right there. You know, a TikTok, a short form content, you know, looking for the information you need, that you don't need to remember it anymore. Is it really common sense? You don't know how many people, you know, I've told, you know, oh, it's 1800. It's not 8 o'clock at night. That's 6 in the evening. 1800 is 6. Yeah. Because I can't count. I mean, I'm guilty of that. Sometimes. Dorman's people are losing their minds. I hope, and I'm working every day to try and, you know, do what I can to make a better world for people. And mostly that's what I do here. That's when I talk. That's when I do this stuff, is to help people critically think. Right? You know, think about stuff. I mean, I might be wrong. I'm open to being wrong. Oh, quick side note. What do you guys think of the new talk time screen? Well, Dormants, you're not that brain rotted. See, I was a very cruel dad. My kids weren't allowed to have a phone or a tablet or unsupervised computer time before they were 13. Nice. That's kind of what I was going for. A little less stimulating, but enough. I don't know. I'm doing different things to see if, you know, people pop in, they get interested to watch. I'm not putting Subway Surfers on the screen. I know that guy asked for it, but I'm still not going to do it. You know, and I plan on, you know, basically simplifying the screens, except for the end screen. I really like that. But I'm going to simplify some of the screens so that they look a little bit better, a little bit cleaner. I just got the idea to do that today. Mainly because I was so frustrated with finding out. There you go. I was so frustrated with finding out how restricted my channel was on YouTube and why I did lives on YouTube for all week. I had one video, one live that I had a second person in there. The other person in there was me on my phone just so I could watch chat and make sure that everything was working properly. Like, really? Really? That's what blows me away. That's like, people should have at least stopped in and, you know, at least seen what I was doing. Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, I didn't, like I said, I didn't even give my kids a phone until they were 13. Or wait, no, they had a old school flip phone that was, I paid for time on. It didn't have even connection to the web. Yeah, track phone. I didn't want to, you know, unsponsored. But, well, yeah, exactly. And even then, give me a sec. Of course, I didn't pop. I tried to mute that. Sorry, apparently I didn't mute it. Even then, my kid was basically one of her friends, quote unquote, opened a Facebook in her name. One of my college friends said, "Hey, did you know your kid has a Facebook?" Because they knew I wasn't supposed to. And they were, that the kids weren't supposed to, and that, they were looking to see if I was there. Yes, yes. Well, dormants, that may not be the best idea. I tried to make my kids as prepared as possible. I didn't want to make them afraid. I wanted them to be aware of what could happen and be prepared for it. Right. Well, even worse, Infinite, is that this person, how do I put, basically tried to fake up that my daughter had gotten hurt at her grandparents' place, which I knew was wrong because, one, my daughter didn't have a phone. And they tried to say that, oh, well, I'm using Grandpa's phone. Grandpa don't got a phone, let alone internet out there, because he lived out, out in the middle of nowhere. And, went back. Yeah, they're basically trying to get the kid in trouble. Well, I basically tried to contact Facebook and say, hey, this person's stealing my kid's identity. You know what Facebook said at the time? We don't care. Take it up with the cops. So I did. But first I tried to go to the parent of this kid and explain. What happened is I got screamed at by the parent, and they said that their kid would never do that would never do that. Screaming and yelling. And I'm like, okay, fine, And what's even worse is that I had my daughter with me. And this parent screamed more at my kid than at me, basically accusing my kid of telling lies. I know it wasn't my kid because my kid had no availability to do that. See, that's the thing is that it wasn't automatic trust of my child. It's like this interaction could have never happened because my kid was out at grandpa's, no internet. Oh, it gets better, dormants. So one night I'm standing on my porch reading a book like I used to like to do. And this kid's bio dad comes running up to me and screaming and yelling, about how I screamed and yelled at his ex-wife, and that he wasn't afraid of me, like, you might be a big dude or, blah, 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 but I was a Marine drill sergeant. I'm like, I have no doubt that you could take me. I have no doubt that you could hurt me, but you step 1 foot on this porch. And I'm warning you now, that is trespassing. And I will call the cops. I will not physically harm you unless you try to harm me. But I will call the cops if you step over that line. And that is when I decided to get the cops involved, is when they finally blustered and bluffed and all of that. Basically, I started the paperwork to get the child charged with identity theft. Wow, Facebook, that Facebook page went down real quick. So yeah. Well, they expected a guy my size to, try to take him on and, battle or whatnot. And it's like, yeah, I could probably attack. I could probably do that, but I would only defend myself. Like, a guy my size, what a lot of people don't realize is I can afford to fight fair. I can give you chances. I can take that first hit. You won't like what happens afterwards. Flat out, you won't like what happens afterward. But that's okay. But I will say that they never bothered me again. because they realize that I'm not going to sit there and scream and yell back at them. Well, I wouldn't try to do that with a Marine drill sergeant. Whether or not he was, I was going to treat him as such, which is stupid. If you don't know what you're telling people you know, and you're sitting there telling them that you know all of this stuff, well, a Marine drill sergeant is a deadly weapon. You fear for your life because they know actual combat hand to hand. What most people don't realize is if you're bluff and blustering that is, you can literally draw a gun and it is seen as a reasonable escalation of force. Because you fear for your life, because a Marine drill sergeant would be able to kill you with a thumb. So they're actually putting their life on the line by trying to intimidate you. Yeah, I get the meaning, but you understand what I'm saying is if you don't know something, don't tell somebody you know it. You're literally endangering your own life. You try to do it for intimidation purposes, especially in today's day and age. You don't realize that if you know hand-to-hand combat, or even if you don't and you're telling somebody you do, you're making them afraid for their life, which means escalation of force is allowed. And it is a reasonable self-defense. Helping dad fix things around the house, ASMR. Well, I wouldn't say, I don't know about ASMR, but I could say that, you know, helping people fix things could be a good niche. Oh, wait, it's been a good niche since the creation of YouTube. Think about how many skills channels there are in showing you how to build things, fix things. I mean, it's better than Google if you want to learn how to fix things. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, it's one of the best things. I mean, hell, I learned a trick on how to change a light bulb. Or not a light bulb, but a headlight in one of my cars. Because it was a real bear to try and do because of how tight they put everything in there. But a mechanic showed me how to do it real easy with a screwdriver rather than having to take out the whole headlight assembly. So I think that was great. It's one of those things that I think a lot of people forget that there is a lot of versatility and a lot of knowledge on the internet. You have to learn how to find what you're looking for. That's the hardest part because it can be very difficult to vet the information, and we're losing media literacy. Again, I blame short form media for that. There's a lot of things I blame short form media for. I personally think that the best average time for a YouTube video is between 38 and 42 minutes. The same time as TV used to run their hour-long shows. Depending on the commercials, it's 38 to 42 minutes is how long an average TV show lasts for, you know, the hour-long shows. And if there's one thing I'm going to trust about TV is how to keep your audience in their seats. How to keep people's butts in chairs in front of what they're watching so that you can advertise to them. I miss old school TV. And I mean old antenna TV, because where I grew up, you didn't always have cable. So you had to put up your antenna and get the 3 or 4 channels. I think we're now so spoiled for choice that we don't understand. I'm not going to say how good we have it. I'm going to say we don't understand how difficult we have it. That we literally have so many choices that we start having brain fatigue and start watching stuff we don't really want to because we're tired of looking. You know, I mean, there used to be a song called 57 Channels and Nothing On, you know, and it was basically a lament of modern TV at that time. You know, 57 channels. I mean, 57,000 channels, 57 million if you count YouTube, you know, as being a streaming service. You are so spoiled for choice that your brain just goes into fatigue trying to find something you watch. And so you just stop on something. It's not that you necessarily want to watch it. You just stop. And now they're making it even worse with short form media. You know, it's like, oh, I just got to watch this 2 minutes of, you know, of a thing before I can flip to the next one to see if there's something good there. And that's if they even give it that long, like 5 seconds. Boom, 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 boom. How long are you scrolling to find something to watch? And then once it starts honing in on what you want, guess what? Then you can't pull yourself away. I mean, how is that not detrimental to your brain? How is that not creating a problem? You know, and I know a lot of people watch shorts. I know a lot of people are trying to get their stuff out there on shorts. I will tell you right now, short form media, not necessarily YouTube shorts. I will tell you right now, you would be better off just going the traditional way and building it from the ground up. Because shorts ain't going to get you shit. And this one's going to be hidden again. Anyway, they're not. Shorts are not going to get you anything in the long run, especially with everybody converting to it. I would rather be in the medium pond of long form content and the people that are trying to find something to listen to, something to talk, you know, to watch. I would rather find that smarter audience, because at least then I know when I talk, they can listen. 4%. I know what you meant. And they can digest what I'm saying. Rather than people that sit there and scroll doomingly through short form content, because they're not going to listen. What's the point? Even if you do convert them to subscribe to your channel, they're never going to come back. They're going to, you know, they're going to rarely find it again. You know, people also forget that, you know, 1 hour of short form content, what's that? 10, 15 videos? You're only 5 minutes of that? What kind of lasting power are you going to have? What kind of impact are you going to have on the person? Think about how fast creators in short form content come and go. And watch how desperate they get to try and get those views back after going viral once or twice. Watch how desperately they try to gather your attention to the point where they now start crimes. You know, first it's bullying people on the street. Then it's, you know, throwing ice in a friggin' deep fat fryer. Then it's breaking into people's houses, accusing people of murder just to get the attention. You know, I mean, why can't people see how bad this is? How detrimental it is for them? How destructive it is to your mentality to watch somebody, because it's car crash. You're not watching it because you're interested in what they're doing. It's the same mechanism as, you know, driving by a car crash and rubbernecking. You're not doing yourself any good. You know, it's literally a train wreck. It's such a thing that you just can't take your eyes off. And then when the next video starts, it resets that part of your brain. You just keep resetting every video. You know, so you're short wiring your short-term memory, and your long-term memory just doesn't get used, because a short form video doesn't last long enough for your short form or short term memory to transfer it into long-term memory. Think about a short you watched. How much did it actually? Well, exactly. That's specifically why I don't even open it up. I don't watch shorts. Like, because it's not just because every time you fall into the pit, it becomes easier the next time. Because now they're getting better at that algorithm as triggering that mechanism in you of getting you to click on those shorts and watch more of them and more and more and more. And you're short wiring your long-term memory because none of those short form videos are you going to be able to remember. So you don't know if you've watched that video 4 or 5 times because your brain literally isn't recording it. It's not long enough. Now, do I have anything really to back this up? No, not really. It is just a feeling I have. It is just something like I've watched some shorts and I can't remember what they were about. And I have a damn good memory. That's how I came across that theory, is realizing that I just watched something and I don't remember what it was I watched. There's a few that will like trigger something. Does it really help a quick reset? Or do you only think it does? Maybe it's better just to put the phone down and do a meditative breathing between classes rather than picking up the phone and watching a few shorts. I get that it's entertaining. Don't get me wrong. It's basically, it is, I understand what you mean by a reset between classes because you're blanking that portion of your brain. But maybe it's just better to breathe, talk with somebody around you. Oh, wait, but they're probably heads in their phone, and so it's very difficult. I had a buddy I used to go to Denny's with, and he got into TikTok and Reels. And we'd go to Denny's, and I'd end up talking to the servers, specifically, you know, the waiter there. And I would talk to him because we'd always go at night, so there's barely anybody there. More often than I'd be talking to the guy across the table from me. And I started, you know, giving him some good-natured ribbing about it. You know, and he started complaining, like, well, you never talk to me. It's like, because your head's in your phone. Sorry, Dormants. I know that you're going to go bye-bye. I apologize. That's going quick. But, you know, and eventually got to the point he can't charge. He's in the car and they don't have a charger in the car. At least if I understood that correctly. It is inevitable. It's Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. It's one of those things that okay, sending an imaginary battery. Yeah, I was gonna say, what is a giggle mug? And if you try to put my coffee in that, I think something yeah, I know. Well, Dormants, it's been nice talking with you. You have a good night. It's one of those things that I don't think people understand. Oh, nice. Always smiling. Giggle mug. I like that. And I also think that that's why a lot of people don't get why newer generations are trying to learn some of the old skills, crocheting, knitting, buy the old video game console, get physical media. You know, there's a whole section of new ones that are trying so hard to break out of this cycle. And I'm right there with them. Break out of it. Break that cycle. You know, take things back a step or two. That is a baby head. I'm assuming that is crying. Baby rage. And it's a Twitch global. something like that. You know, and the problem is that we're starting to shift into two different social classes. We're going back between, you know, basically to the same dichotomy of the old, you know, country boy, you know, country person, city, you know, and city person, where the two sides just don't really understand each other. And I foresee this divide happening, is those who depend on tech, use AI, use all of this stuff to their detriment. I'm not saying, you know, use AI. I use AI, but use it responsibly. And then you're going to have people that, yeah, not another great divide. And then you'll have people that can actually read a real book and don't need an audio book. You'll have people that can actually use their hands to fix something. Right? I mean, yeah, I mean, use AI as a tool. I am all for that. Obviously, if you know anything about my music channel, which, by the way, I have a whole album dropping tomorrow morning. I decided to change up how I was releasing my music. And I did 12 songs, which I normally do in a month anyway, but they're all themed. And this time I decided to go for kind of a Cuban Miami jazz feel from like the 1930s-ish, but not really. And I think I did a pretty darn good job on this album, and I'm pretty proud of it. All 12 songs are going to be released tomorrow morning at 8, but there's also one big long video that's about an hour and 9 minutes long, which I find funny because that's actually 69 minutes. Tee hee. That was not intentional. Where it has it all in a play, you know, not a playlist, but all in an order. Well, I guess it is a playlist. That I felt the song should be in. You know, I actually tried to think it out. And I'm actually pretty proud of what I've done. I think I kind of gave an experience to it. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to start doing my music in that way. Cuban sound machine. Well, I don't know. I mean, and I think the band was actually the Miami Sound Machine. Right? The accidental 69 is diabolical. That is actually rather funny. Because I kept thinking of it as 109 minutes, and my wife corrected me. She's like, no, that's 69 minutes. And I'm like, you're right. But I mean, I don't know. I'm actually pretty proud of what I got out of it, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think it more comes across as like the 90s big band revival, and I tried to do kind of a Latin flair to it, but that's because I just thought it sounded cool, and I'm a big fan of The Mask and Cuban Pete, the song Cuban Pete, which I really liked. You know, and I did do my usual 4 variants in there, but I did them in the Cuban 1930s jazz style flair. The rains down in Africa. Kansas, I don't think we're in Toto anymore. Okay, there's actually a bigger, deeper joke there is that one of the members of Kansas was in the band Toto, or he formed the band Toto after he was in Kansas or something like that. There is actually a deeper joke there. So I thought that was funny. Joe and Bonnie, yes, that was the names. You're back. Welcome back, Normans. Did you find a charger? Or did you just grab somebody else's? No, she did eventually have the baby. And the baby, if I remember correctly, talked like or had the voice of Patrick Stewart. Been a while since I watched Family Guy. But I don't know, you know, I mean, it's one of the things that I think really bothers me. I think she did eventually have the baby. But yeah, I mean, that's one, you know, speaking of music and stuff like that, I think that's what kind of bothers me about modern music. Because when was the last time we had like a really big musician band, whatever, that literally hit people all, you know, all over? I mean, who we talk about. I mean, the only one I can think of. Oh, yeah, exactly. And the only name that comes to mind, which I've never even, as far as I know, intentionally listened to any of her songs, is Taylor Swift. Not because I've actively avoided it. It's just what I've heard here and there just isn't my style. I don't think she's bad or good or whatnot. Just not my style. And we just don't have those big bands anymore. And what, Taylor Swift's been holding on for 15, 20 years? I don't remember exactly how long. I mean, more power to her. I'm not complaining. In fact, the only song that I can think of her that I'm pretty sure is her song is Shake It Off. And I remember kind of liking that song. But, you know, music hasn't even really moved forward. You know, you go back 20 years and you're really not going to notice a big genre shift. You know, 2005. We're still, you know, there's no real defining characteristics to the last 20 years. Like everything got put on hold. From music to, I mean, they keep reviving the same TV shows, movies. I mean, how many different remakes, live action remakes have we done in the last 20 years? You know, the only real defining thing is the Marvel movies and how bad Star Wars was. Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm not saying that, you know, whatever. I'm saying that that's fine. You know, Taylor Swift made her money. She did, you know, still making her money, you know, but she's still in the news. But I would not say that she is a genre defining artist like, say, Michael Jackson was, who was in the pop music zeitgeist for 20 years. You know, you look at Taylor Swift and Michael Jackson, you know, they've both been roughly around the same. Okay, so she's only been around 10 years, I guess. See, it's so muddy to me. You know, so 2015, you know, the last 10 years, we haven't really seen any differences. Like in the 90s, you know, you could see, you know, there was some very definite things people wore that, you know, is the 90s. Once you start getting into the 2000s, it all becomes very muddy. There is no defining characteristic other than what? Hoodies? You know, hoodies became more prevalent. You know, nothing's really taken over the zeitgeist. And again, I think this is short form media. I think people are switching so fast that nothing is able to define itself. Nothing is able to stick long enough to really stick, to help people define themselves. And I think that's why a lot of the generations are going back to the old things like the 80s and stuff, because they want to define themselves in their generation. I mean, when you look at 70s clothing, you know it's 70s clothing. You look at 80s, you know it's 80s. You look at 90s, you know it's 90s. You look at 2000s, it's jeans and t-shirts, sweats. What really defines the last 20 years? You know, I mean, in the 90s, it was hair metal. You know, late 80s, early 90s, it was hair metal. You know, that's what really defined the music genre. You know, Michael Jackson and hair metal, you know, between the two, you know, pop. 80s, Michael Jackson, maybe some country. I don't know. You know, I mean, you know an 80s song when you know it. You know, when you hear it, you know it. Same with the 90s. You know when that came from. You know, so I mean, I couldn't tell you what music would really say, oh, that's 2000. Oh, that's from 2010. You know, and now we're halfway through the 2025 decade. You know, the 2020 decade. What has defined the 2020 decade? Well, exactly. I mean, I would love to see, and this might surprise some people, I would love to see a modern remake of Damnation Alley, which I guarantee you none of you even know what movie I'm talking about, because it was overshadowed by another movie. No, I refuse to let that define the 2020 decade. That can't be it. One more hint. Oh, it came out the same year as Star Wars, the original. But Damnation Alley was about basically well, okay, yeah, you want to define the 2020s? Brain rot, political division, everything's political. You know, people that try to talk about pop culture stuff have to talk about politics to explain comic books. That's ridiculous. That's brain rot. I mean, God, it is so frustrating because, well, anyway, Damnation Alley. Basically, it's a high-tech motorhome driving through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. That way I don't ruin the plot or anything like that. I'm just explaining, you know, a basic, you know, what it is. And it would have probably been, if you fast forwarded it to the mid 80s to 90s, that movie would have topped the charts. No, it does not have Mel Gibson in it. I don't think. You're thinking of the Mad Max series. But if we did it in the mid 80s to early 90s, it would have had Mel in it. Because that would have been, you know, basically Mad Max was kind of how Damnation Alley was, but it predates the original Mad Max. Right? Yeah. I mean, it literally came out in the same time frame as the original Star Wars. You know, A New Hope. And I mean, nobody's ever heard of it. I think a post-apocalyptic movie right now would be great, but it was also, you know, at the time when, you know, nuclear weapons and all of that were the big fear. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure Damnation Alley inspired parts of Fallout. You know, the original Fallout. You know, and I think that's a large part of the problem is that there's nothing really in the last, you know, in the 2020s that really helps anybody try and define anything. You know, I mean, we can't define. And it's not that those eras were better. Don't get me wrong. The 70s, 80s, 90s, they weren't better than today. I guarantee you. I lived it, I can tell you. But they did have freedom. You did have your own agency. I was a latchkey kid from the time I was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood. I was cooking dinner for my parents, before they got home from work. You got a movie for me? Tell me. I was cleaning the house. I was mowing the lawn. I was taking care of the trash, but I was also doing my homework and I was also helping my friends, and we were going off and playing. We were exploring. We were doing things. I mean, we didn't have cell phones. You'd leave a note for your mom and dad saying, oh, okay, I'll be back about this time, just in case they got home before you. But most often I would be home, cook dinner. The Uma Thurman Robin Hood? No, I have not. And, we had to grow up a certain amount, but we also got to be kids. We didn't have a whole lot of supervision growing up. And you couldn't just call your parent if something bad happened. You'd have to call their work. Work would have to find them, blah, 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 get back to you. I mean, sometimes you could call directly, but that was very rare in most of the kids I knew circle. So you had to be self-reliant, but it also meant that you could do a lot. Oh, which Kevin Costner movie? Was it Prince of Thieves? Or was it one of his post-apocalyptic, Postman or Waterworld? I got to watch Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, I don't know, like 7 or 8 times in the theater. Oh, okay. The one commercial that survived the 2000s. But I never had to pay for it. People wanted to go see it. They heard it was such a great movie. And well, my movie theater only had 2 screens. And I can't remember what the other movie was playing, but nobody wanted to watch it. So I'm going to have to look up the Uma Thurman Robin Hood. That might be more fun than the Kevin Costner one, because I didn't find that one very good. I just shipped my bed. I remember that. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem is that we don't have a defining characteristic for the last, I mean, what was the 2010s? What was the defining characteristic of the 2010s in fashion or in, culture of some kind? It was so overshadowed by politics, and still is, that everything's become revolving around politics. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't. In fact, I don't think people should be talking as much about politics as they are. I don't think people should care that much. Alcoholism. And that's like, sure, talk about your problems, talk about these things, but I don't think people should care that much about it. They've got you so wrapped up, but it doesn't really matter. I wish I could explain that, but I mean, having lived through several presidents don't matter. Your reaction to the president matters. And if people just get on with their life and quit worrying about the president, things are smooth. Now, when it starts affecting them, you talk to you start doing a few things. But when the presidents stop becoming celebrities and start being servants, civil servants again, you'll have a better world. Because, well, in the 80s, 90s, a president didn't want the country's attention. That meant they were doing something wrong. Like, that was bad for business. And sure, I'm sure politicians got away with a whole bunch of things. But I also know that if you look through the 80s and 90s, people were able to get along. People were able to get on with their lives, get on with doing things. It's a lot harder now for people to do so. Because everything, I mean, you can't look into your fandom, you read a book and suddenly, they're talking about this, that, and the other thing, political thing. You can't turn your brain off and just enjoy something. I don't care if you call it, woke, anti-woke messaging. I don't care. It shouldn't be in there. Not unless it is actually pertinent to the story. Right? Right. I mean, and that's the problem is that the only thing to define our world since basically 2010 is the political divide, which is short form media. It started getting shorter and shorter. And I think that has literally rotted our brains. Good night, Green Jeans. See you Tuesday. You have a good one. And it has reduced our ability to even have quiet moments. It has reduced our ability to enjoy each other's company. And that is scary, that people just can't sit and be. I don't know how many times sitting at Denny's, I watched people, what looked to be out on a date, whether husband, wife, whatever, or even two friends. It wouldn't matter who they really were. Staring at their phone more than talking with each other. I don't even have words for that. Like, how do you not put down your phone and enjoy each other? Exactly. But see, how many people have read that book? Let alone, how many people that reference 1984 have ever actually read it? Or even talk, in George Orwell quotes, but have never read Animal Farm. I mean, they're coming out with the movie To the Long Walk. And I'm wondering how many people have ever read the story. I mean, it's just a short story. Right? Well, my high school couldn't keep up with my reading. When we were reading the Odyssey, I was reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. Sure. Why not? I've read so many things, from biographies to science textbooks to fiction. I mean, my favorite is fiction. My favorite claim to fame is that I read Stephen King's It in 2 days when I was homesick. Cover to cover. And I've read the Arthurian legends. I can't even tell you. I mean, I have read so much. And I keep trying to find new books to read, but every time I pick one up, I am so saddened. By how bad the new writing is. How far they've had to dumb it down for people to read. And I know this is going to offend a lot of people, but J.K. Rowling's a hack writer. I don't care about any other part of her politics. I tried to read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I think I got 2 pages in, and I had already found a dozen typos from a legit published work of art. And I'll say it just like I said it way back then. If there was an industry plant, it's J.K. Rowling. He was planted to make a big book that went into movies. Like, it was all engineered. Why? I don't know. I think it has to do with publishing was dying. That book publishing was dying. It was losing out, and they needed a reason for people to pick up books. So along came J.K. Rowling. Oh, Ninetales, you're not going back far enough. It is literally, hands down, ripped off Arthurian legends. Harry Potter is King Arthur. I mean, Draco Malfoy? Morgana Le Fay? You're going to tell me that's not intentional? You know, well, I don't even think J.K. Rowling realized it. Yeah. I will say that she's a better writer than Stephanie Meyer because I couldn't get past a paragraph before I was a dozen typos in. The Twilight Saga was absolute trash. And I will defend that to my dying day. From a writing standpoint. Sure, the story, you can enjoy the story. But from a guy that was editing college level papers at the time. I was working in a college online lighting lab. I was working at the college's writing lab. You know, like, I'm not talking about the story. You know, people like what they like. And again, I'm not talking about Harry Potter and stuff like that. I will make one critique. Those weren't vampires, they were elves. Pure and simple, the description of the elves is the original description of the Unseelie court. The night elves. Or the twilight elves, the winter elves. You know, it's winter, summer, night, day, you know. You know, and I will stand on that. Oh yeah, they were the old Fae, the elves, the old Celtic mythology about the elves. You know, even down to needing blood, living forever, preying on children, and feuding with werewolves. Because in Irish folklore, werewolves are actually good people. They're not warriors, they're guardians of graveyards. Because the Fae would like to come in and defile corpses. Sorry, Dormans. You have a good one. I will. Yes, that too. And I mean, like the story all you want. But the editing and publishing got so bad once newspapers died. You know, copy editors went to shit. Again, sorry. And it is so difficult to read anything anymore because the writing has gotten so lazy. And by that, I mean grammar, punctuation, construction of sentences. And I saw it coming when they started calling, you know, certain types of poetry visual poetry with words. So they draw a picture with letters and call it poetry. What? Like, what? Poetry is supposed to invoke an emotion. I honestly don't think they intended to invoke irrational anger from me with the poetry of a grasshopper. That is literally just the, you know, the word grasshopper written out in the shape of a grasshopper. I don't even remember who supposedly wrote that poem, but I was supposed to critique it. You know, a professional poet wrote this book, and that was one of the poems in the book. And I'm just like, that invoked irrational anger in me. Because that's not writing. Yes. And, you know, I like poetry to a certain degree. I think people put it too high on a pedestal, but it is the attempt to distill emotions or a story into a refined portion so you can get more of the story across in limited space. Except for they forget that poetry was originally just so people could remember what was written. Hence the rhyming scheme. Hence the stanzas and how they were blocked. It was a memory device to pass along stories. That's why you have the old sagas, which sagas were written poetically. Homer's Iliad, Odyssey, in the original Latin, were poems because they were intended for people to memorize. And I think a lot of writers have forgotten. And this includes Stephen King in his later works. I mean, and I'm a big Stephen King fan, but in his later works, he's gotten pretty bad at writing memorable things. Because writing is more than just putting your emotions on a page. It is about invoking emotions from your writing. And part of that is choosing your words properly. Yes, I hate to say it, but yes. I really hate to say that, but I think in his coke-fueled rage, he did better writing because he was able to write from a standpoint of pain. But that's more due to Stephen King's unresolved guilt and anger at himself than down to the drug. Most authors can't let go of their hang-ups. They don't do enough self-analysis. They don't go to enough therapy to be able to pull those parts of themselves and make it something into a better writing. You know, they can't put themselves in the position of their characters. You know, I got good advice a long time ago. And every author's heard it. Every potential writer's heard it. Write what you know. The problem is most people misunderstand what that means. You have to put yourself in the position of who you're writing, the perspective of the person you're writing from. If you're talking about heartbreak, you have to self-reflect, self-analyze to a heartbreak you've had. If you're talking about true love, this is why romance always pisses me off, because romance in most novels is garbage because they don't know what true love is. So much so that it has swayed so many people's idea of what true love is now that they think, you know, that, oh, once it's lost its passion, it's all over. No, that's when real true love gets to work. Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying is that, you know, I may not be the best writer in the world, but I am a voracious reader. I know a good book. I know a good story when I read one. I like writing my music because I like putting myself in these positions and trying to put and bring that out. Maybe I'm a hack at music writing. I don't care because I like what I do. You know? I mean, what can I say? I know that I really enjoy what I do. And that's more important to me than any kind of celebrity, any kind of moving forward on it or anything like that. It's, do you enjoy it? Don't write for money, write for you. Now, you might have to find a talent that you have and do what's called bread and butter novels. If you look up Simon R. Green, you can obviously see what his bread and butter novels were versus his true passion projects. His bread and butter novels? Oh yeah, Hubbard wrote for money. That was obvious. I tried reading one of his books and it's trash. I will say that other than some problematic crap in Heinlein stuff, I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from Heinlein's work. Specifically the book Pass Through Tomorrow. Yes. But a lot of writers forget that it doesn't matter what setting you put it in, space, blah, 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 blah. It's always a human story. And if it's not a human story, people won't read it. That's why, the original Star Wars invoked so much passion and whatever, that relationship in people, is because it was a human story about a fallible kid that for some reason gets chosen. He's King Arthur. He gets to pull the sword from the stone. And he gets to watch his wizard Merlin die right in front of him at the hands of Morgana Le Fay. Vader. And that's what galvanizes him to do better. Because if he was better, he may have been able to save his friend's life. This man that saved his life. That's an invoked emotion. You can see that storyline move and progress. You look at Sinners, the new movie, excellent movie. You can see the emotional progression through that movie. I don't want to spoil it for people, but you can see how the characters emotionally progress and how the true main character makes a decision that you can understand. It literally gets you in the feels if you pay attention. But I went and watched some other movies that were forgettable. Mickey 17, absolutely forgettable garbage movie. I would never suggest anybody watch it. I wanted to like it. Oh, yes, it did. I wasn't in the theater, but I have a pretty decent sound. There's a lot of things that I think modern audiences don't understand. And that's because everything's gotten too corporate and safe. We don't have risky movies anymore. We don't have the sleeper hits that all of a sudden, nobody understands why, but this was a hit. This was miraculous. We don't have the cult classics that came from movie rentals. I think that's sad that movie studios aren't taking risks anymore. I mean, Knock at the Cabin with Dave Bautista. That showed me that he can freaking act. Dave Bautista can act better than John Cena, better than The Rock by a landslide. I mean, The Rock plays a rock. I mean, The Rock. And you'll never change my mind. He plays himself. He is so arrogant, he can't play anybody else. I mean, everybody's saying, oh, the Smashing Machine. You mean basically him playing himself? Only instead of WWE, it's MMA? Like, you're not going to convince me that he's playing anybody else. He's still playing The Rock. You know, he's just pulling from his real life and has come up into the WWE. You know, The Rock can't act, but that's okay. Neither could Stallone. Neither could Arnold Schwarzenegger. They really couldn't. Not until later in their careers. Well, actually, no. Stallone could act really well when he acted in Rocky. Like his first few movies, he was great. And then he was typecast. Yeah. Anytime you have a clause like that in your contracts, you're an arrogant actor, which tells me that he probably got along very well with Vince McMahon. They're both narcissists. Whether he participated in Vince McMahon's other shenanigans, I won't even begin to guess. But I will say that they're both narcissists and got along very well. I wish people would understand their own true motives for doing what they do. And 9 times out of 10 is because we're distracting ourselves from things we don't like about our life or ourselves. Whether it's short form media or the media we consume in one manner or another, whether it's our addictions to one thing or another, it's distractions. We don't have the life we want, so we're distracting ourselves from it rather than working towards it. And I think that's very sad that we're being pushed further and further away from being able to work on what we want. We're being shown a world we'll never have, and it's like a museum. You know, you only have so much time, so you got to look at everything. And I really do think it's sad that even movie stars have that problem. Because that's The Rock's problem. He's trying to have a life he can never have. You know, it's just like Elon Musk. Rock and Elon Musk both have the same problem. They want approval from a person that probably will never give it or can't. So they're looking for it everywhere else. And on that note, I'm going to leave it on that. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will see you, well, not just a wonderful evening, rest of your weekend. And I will see you all Tuesday.